We do have some reaction now. The ANC spokesperson on the line, Mabe. Mr. Mabe, is the party happy with its president tonight?
Evening to your viewers. Of course, the African National Congress do welcome measures announced by the president. We believe that these measures are necessary to flatten the curve and make sure that our already over-exhausted health system is able to cope with dealing with the number of transmissions that we have seen under this third wave. But it will also allow our country, our government, to be able to assess the kind of progress that is being made, especially during this time when everything else is being done by government to fight this deadly coronavirus.
Mr. Mabe, the president spoke about vaccinations at length. I'm glad about that. He said the whole world is scrambling for vaccines. But are you, as a party, putting pressure on government, your own elected officials put in high positions, to really push this? Because if you look at the people who are fully vaccinated in South Africa, I was just looking at the latest stats, 0.8%. fully vaccinated. The world average is 10.5%. We're nowhere near where we wanted to be. The early predictions were herd immunity would only be reached with 200,000 a day. He said we've reached 100,000 a day, and that is 6 months later. Are you concerned about this?
Well, of course, I mean, we have raised our concern with those of our deployees that are deployed in government, and encourage them that there is a need to really fight the vaccination effort. The report that they have given suggests that everything else is being done, even at that level, to make sure that they could escalate the work that is being done. I think we need to give them every support possible to make sure that they can meet the target that they have set for themselves. At this time, it's a time when all of us must be cooperating with the efforts that the government is driving forward to fight this deadly virus.
Mr. Mabe, we're running out of time, so a quick question. Do you think the charges that the health minister, who's now not in his position, there's an acting health minister, have distracted government?
Well, not necessarily, because government works as a team. There is the National Coronavirus Command Council that the president is leading. All of our cadres that are in government and participate in the NCCC would all have a side of what needs to happen. I mean, government is not necessarily run by an individual. These are a collective of men and women entrusted with various responsibilities. So it doesn't mean that when this one was performing this responsibility is not there, there's going to be lacks of the system. No.
Right.
I mean, government has got systems in place to make sure that the work that had begun, which is being driven by a collective, to fight this coronavirus pandemic continues with greater speed, so that we could be able to save lives.
All right, thank you very much, ANC spokesperson Mabe. We now have Mkhuleko Hlengwa, IFP spokesperson, on the line. Mr. Hlengwa, your response to what the president announced?
Well, thank you so much, Francis. Well, there's a Zulu saying that goes, "Sisenjeni." We are in the belly of the dog. Quite clearly, the country is in dire straits, and the pandemic has again taken over the country. And largely because of the very slow pace of the turnaround time which government is employing on key critical areas of managing the pandemic. The lockdown was initially designed and continues to be a measure for the preparation of the healthcare services to be ready to meet the demands of the pandemic. And right through the address this evening, the president has been lamenting how far the pandemic is putting a strain on the healthcare services. And that is a government failure. The second point is the president places heavy reliance on vaccination as a means of pushing back on the frontiers of this pandemic. But the vaccination program of the country is moving at a snail's pace. So you've got a situation of the government speaking left and walking right and vice versa without a particular due regard with urgency to move on the key critical areas. Thirdly, we are obviously in trouble in that we've got by-elections on Wednesday. The president has announced elections for October 27, and we have repeatedly warned as the IFP on the hard-headedness of government on one hand and the IEC to proceed with elections in the midst of uncertainty. And so all these variables combined speak to a government that has completely failed to be proactive on these measures. We spoke about the Indian situation when it was happening in India, speaking about travel bans, amongst other things, and government just refused to listen.
All right.
And so we are now at a point again where we have to rely on the lockdown, whereas government should have been proactive. And we are calling on
Mr. Hlengwa, we've run out of time, but your message is clear, that we don't need to be in the position that we are in. Government could have done better. That's from the IFP and Kuleko Hlengwa. We have on the line now EFF spokesperson Vuyani Pambo. Mr. Pambo, your party's response very quickly to what the president said.
Thank you very much for having us. As the EFF, we note the regurgitated lockdown regulations and the perpetual lockdown state that we're being put under. We must remember as a country the reasons why we went into lockdown in the first place. And in this instance, it is the very same reasons that the president is now saying or going back to it. The reason why we went into lockdown was because we were trying to give the healthcare system, or the lack of a system, to prepare itself and to make sure that there are enough beds for, these infections so that we can curb the number of infections in the country. Now, the president, a year later, responds in the same way as if there is no vaccine. We do have a vaccine. The only answer is vaccination. It's not lockdown. This president is engaged in transaction and is not engaged in a program to save lives. Yeah. We can't be responding with lockdowns when we are supposed to be responding with vaccinating our people. Russia and China are saying to us, we've got 15 million vaccines for you. You can just get them from us. This president is not interested in making sure that the people of South Africa are vaccinated. He responds with regulations, and these regulations have not helped. They are not helping.
Mr. Pambo, he was engaging with the EFF tonight. He said it's disturbing when political leaders launch attacks against world-renowned health experts. That's after you marched to SAPRA's offices. And my question to you is the EFF not doing a stunning turnaround initially in the hard lockdown? You said that the president was killing people by not going even harder, by not shutting down more economic activity. You're now holding a march. 2,000 people were there. The president of the EFF still addressed them despite lockdown regulations.
We needed hard lockdown in the absence of vaccines. We do have vaccines now. When we were calling for the president to lock down the country, it is when vaccines were not there in the world, not only in South Africa. Then there was no scientific evidence of any working vaccine. Now we have vaccines. The world over has got vaccines. China, Russia, even America, they are now at a place where they don't need to be wearing masks. We are still behind because this government does not prioritize life. We are not changing our stance. We are simply being realistic, and we can see that our support of this government is not being received properly, but also this government is not understanding what is happening and is not interested in saving lives.
Yeah.
This government by now can't be talking lockdown. It should be talking vaccination.
Mr. Pambo, the president is not the only one concerned about the attacks against health personnel. You said that you wanted the board of chair of SAPRA to resign, and you could go to the house of the CEO. These are both women professionals. Are you going to listen to the president tonight?
We are not going to listen to nonsense. We've been listening to these nonsensical lockdown regulations, which are not helping us. The answer is not lockdowns, Francis, and you must understand it for that.
Okay, I was talking about your statements against SAPRA, but we've run out of time. I think your message has come across clearly. Thank you, EFF spokesperson Vuyani Pambo. Peter Groenewald, also from the FF Plus, now for a reaction. Mr. Groenewald, what did you think of the president's address?
Well, firstly, allow me to thank all health workers from doctors, nurses, and everybody involved in the front line fighting this pandemic. We want to say to them, we appreciate their hard work, their overworked, long hours, but we really appreciate. I want to start to say that the situation we're in, I put squarely on the shoulders of the president and his government. And the reason I say that is if the government and the health department reacted timely and ensured that we had the vaccines, we wouldn't have been in this situation. We are paying the price for the fact that they did not do their job. Secondly, I can't understand that the government cannot prepare the Veld hospitals. This week, the Premier for Gauteng said they are not in a process to utilize the field hospital, for instance, at Nasrec. I don't understand. It's pressure on our hospitals. Thirdly, I also want to say that the government must ensure that mass meetings like we had this week from the EFF should be treated with a very serious approach of consequence, and they must ensure and make an example so that the people of South Africa can see that they are serious, that if you contravene the regulations, that there will action be taken against you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your response. Please forgive us. We are running against the clock here. We do have the DA leader, John Steenhuisen, on the line, and we'd like to throw in a quick reaction there. Mr. Steenhuisen, your response.
Good evening to you and good evening to the viewers at home this evening. Well, I think that the big thing missing tonight out of the address was where the vaccines are. And this is the one thing that's going to be able to protect South Africans during this third wave. We go into the third wave, one of the least vaccinated nations in the world, with just over 1% of the population that have been vaccinated. The President's very good this evening talking about big numbers, talking about 300,000 vaccinations per day. But if one looks at the figures today alone, we only vaccinated just 2,289 South Africans. Now, this is clearly not good enough, and many South Africans who have been left vulnerable now, I think, are able to really place the blame at the door of government for failing to vaccinate properly and failing to ensure that we were in the queue timelessly, failure to pay the COVAX deposits on time, and failure to secure those vaccines. And
he said, Mr. Steenhuisen, we ran short. He admitted that. He said the entire world is crying out for vaccines, and we're doing everything we can. So you don't believe that?
The ran short is, I think, completely dishonest. And I think that Mr. Ramaphosa has been fundamentally dishonest about vaccines right from the beginning. We were promised 2 million people vaccinated at the end of March. We hopelessly failed on that target. Right. The truth of the matter is we are 33rd on the continent. Countries like Zimbabwe, countries like Sierra Leone, countries like Mauritania are all way ahead of South Africa in terms of being able to vaccinate members of the population. I think the President is ducking for cover here, and I think he's trying to avoid taking responsibility for getting to grips with the one thing that would make a huge difference in saving lives and livelihoods in this, and that would be ensuring that we got jabs and arms.
All right.
And that has been a fundamental failure of government.
We have to leave it there. Thank you very much, dear leader John Steenhuisen. Thank you for being with me and the Full View team tonight. The Globe comes up next, and we'll continue to bring you reaction on this channel from the President's address. And life certainly changes tomorrow. Much more stringent measures announced in light of the Delta variant now becoming prevalent across the country, and Gauteng is so bad. Travel in and out of this province not allowed except for work purposes.